Monday AM. First reading. Miss H.'s suppression of years past causing misdirected nerves, glands, and circulation. Vibrator. Treatments each night, charcoal and pepsin after each meal. 4. Indigestion. B. Cosmetics best. Keep cheerful, don't worry over things you can't help. Expect to be well, strong, and as fat as you want to be. PM. First reading. Mr. T.L. hernia, also nasal trouble. Advised Swedish massage and manipulation, telling exactly how it should be done. I. Spray, telling how it should be prepared, special diet, including especially vitamins D and E. Tuesday AM. First reading. Mr. BLM high blood pressure, produced by poor eliminations, poisons in blood. Colonic irrigations. X-ray will show dilation in colon. General manipular. Tie-ins between colonics. Sulfoscient food for weight, but no greases. There is a river and fats until better condition is established. Nearly normal conditions can be achieved. PM. First reading. Mrs. AGM condition in lumbar, caused by childbirth. Manipulations, external and internal adjustments, will prevent much trouble later on. Wednesday AM. First reading. Mrs. E.L. heart and dropsical condition. Entire recovery not promised, but treatment for this condition by homeopathic school will bring greatest relief. Poor tie-on of adrenaline. Also bedbug juice, which is the homeopath's specific for such conditions. Advised finding a homeopathic PHY. Sikian. PM check. Mrs. EBH body in better condition. Keep up treatments as outlined. Vegetables grown in vicinity are always better for body than those grown elsewhere and shipped in. Check. Miss B.'s nervous shock to system from automobile accident. Advised hot baths, massages with cocoa butter. Prescription for liver and eliminations generally, diet for building up body. Should be up and about in 3 weeks. Check. Mrs. M.W. Continue treatments as given, increasing amount of ash in eye for massage, also increase light treatments. Beware of fats or greases in diet. Check. Mrs. S.H. congestion from cold, also from condition of long-standing in colon. Horehound prescription for expec. Torrent, special diet, vibrator and violet ray treatments. No veg. Table sweets, such as potatoes, sweet they cause choking. Up. Thursday AM. First reading. Miss E.W. hindered spleen, torpid liver, tipped stomach, bad digestion. Sinusoidal treat. Ments, tonic, special diet. PM check. Mr. J.'s accentuation of old disorders. Lachira. Tie-ins, acidity, disturbed circulation, torpid liver, unbalancing. Tendency to fall, overflow of blood to upper portion. Glands produce too much fluid through capillary circulation, kidneys and hepatic circulation disturbed. These are results. Advised castor oil packs over lower stomach and liver area, alkaline diet, olive oil internally, lactated pepsin, mixture of olive oil, tincture of myrrh, and turpentine to be massaged into spine. Grade oil Mars. Sage for scalp for falling hair. There is a river check. Mrs. EJB. Suggestions not followed wholeheartedly, response not what it should be. Follow them closely. And add. Digestive stimuli, alternate doses of magnesia, bismuth, castoria, enema, and mud baths, mud especially prepared for the pose. Friday a.m. First reading. Miss G.J. Physical condition Gen. Eerily good. Some pressure in lumbar and sacral areas causing weakness in bursa of heels. Unless corrected will be aggravating. Later. Massage by neuropath or masseurs, followed by MBS. With lotion of oils, alcohol, witch hazel, rosewater, etc. Then. Violet ray for pressure in upper dorsal and cervical which Duchesne's strain and irritation to soft tissue in head, neck, throat, nasal cavities. Correction will prevent tendency to colds and irritation in throat and head. P.M. First reading. Miss M.J. Excessive functioning of glands. In some portions, deficient functioning in others, hidden infection. Strict diet, free from salines, limes, or silicon, abundant amounts of iron, iodine, and phosphorus. Itemized diet, including certain fruit, nuts, and vegetables. Atomidine, salt packs, MBS with oil, etc. Further instructions later. Saturday a.m. First reading. Miss E.H. in coordination, isting from psychopathic angle. Prenatal cause, psychic forces. Being basis. Description of glands, psychic forces, etc. Wet cell. Appliance. Description of electrical life fluids on body, and 6. Brations. Keep high eliminations through sweats with salt baths, witch hazel, etc. Further suggestions as she progresses. In 2 or 3 years may be normal. P.M. First reading. Mrs. C.L. Unbalancing of forces from poor eliminations, cold, congestion in antrums and bronchi, blood. Overcharged, unbalanced metabolism, temperature. Basic condition in cerebrospinal system, functioning through digestion. Use lights or B, as counter-irritation to spine, turpentine, spirits of camphor, and tallow to throat, face and feet. Take liver prescription, also tonic of herbs, wild cherry bark carrot etc. Itemized diet. Only a small portion of the readings were for patients in the hospital, though most of its beds were filled. All of there is a river time. Special days were set aside for checking on these patients. The remainder of the periods was used in an attempt to dent the pile of requests from people all over the country who had read or heard of the hospital and had written for appointments. We're booked 3 months ahead. Except for the periods I've left open for Morton, Gladys said one morning. Fill up those appointments of Morton's, Edgar said. Philosophy can wait. Sick people can't. Some of these folks may die before they get their readings. I'll give Morton his on Sundays. You're not supposed to work on Sundays, Gertrude said. You can't. The readings say you mustn't overdo it. You need at least 1 day's rest a week. Besides, you teach son. Day school in the morning and lecture at the hospital in the afternoon. What time have you to give readings? Edgar went off to feed his chickens, grumbling. He'll do it, the squire said. I know it, Gertrude said wearily. Sunday was a busy day at the hospital. In the morn, patients were bundled off to the various churches. In the afternoon visitors were shown through the building, and a crowd usually in excess of 100 persons gathered for the lecture. Morton and Edgar spoke on alternate Sundays, and Morton conducted a philosophy class on the Saturday afternoons when he was at the beach. The class had a textbook, Ouspensky's Tertium Organum, and did outside reading in Bergson's Creative Evolution and Mind Energy, James's Varieties of Religious Experience, and Hudson's Law of Psychic Phenomena. The Sunday lectures were on such subjects as the value of introspection, my idea of God, and the fourth dimensional viewpoint. Edgar talked very much as he did in Sunday school. The Bible was his textbook. The same people, largely, came to hear both men. Both covered the same territory, took up the same subjects. Both, in essence, often said the same thing, but in quite different words. Speaking of man's relationship to God, Morton said, there is a river summer to interviewing visitors and answering questions. To the best of their ability they foiled the crackpots and faddists, and presented a sane, sensible view of the work. They always look at me as if I were crazy, Tommy used to say. Tiju I keep after them xmta they change their minds. They finally agree with me, and then they think we're both crazy. Morton was already looking for new fields to conquer. The hospital was a fulfillment for Edgar. Morton needed a university to hold his dreams. He began buying up land opposite the hospital, on the other side of the boulevard, between it and the ocean. Here he planned to establish Atlantic University. It was to be a modest project at first, until a staff of teachers was gathered which could integrate the new PHY with the old, orthodox system of education. He decided to erect 2 buildings as a nucleus. What he needed first, however, was a man to take charge of the undertaking. In the autumn of 1929 Dr. Brown left his post at Washington and Lee to run for governor of Virginia on the Republican ticket. His defeat was a foregone conclusion unless he could take advantage of the split in the sowed South, caused by the candidacy on the national ticket in 1928 of Alfred E. Smith. During the campaign Dr. Brown made several speeches in Alexandria and other Virginia towns near Washington. Morton went to Washington, and at a luncheon in the Willard Hotel offered Dr. Brown the job of inaugurating Atlantic University in the event of his defeat in the election. I don't know, Dr. Brown said. Starting a university is expensive. Would $50,000 take care of it the first year? Morton said. Dr. Brown hesitated. There is a river, yes, Dr. Brown said. I'm sure it could be started on less than that. Of course it depends on what you want, how extensive a curriculum, how experienced a faculty. We want the best, Morton said. They didn't discuss details, since it was necessary, for the sake of good manners, to pretend that Dr. Brown was to be the next governor of Virginia. They left Whitley and standing, however, and when Dr. Brown was soundly beaten at the polls a few weeks later, both got busy. Morton author is the laying of foundations for 2 buildings, one for classrooms, one for a dormitory, and Dr. Brown started rounding up a faculty. Meanwhile, on October 12, Dr. House died. He had been sick a long time, following a serious illness and years of overwork at the hospital in Hopkinsville. The readings had outlined treatments which kept him active, but offered no hope for an 5-carat hing but alleviation, since his entire system was affected. Late in the summer of 1929 they suggested a trip to Dayton for treatments by Dr. Lyman A. Liddick, an osteopath who had become interested in the readings and worked with them while Edgar was in Dayton. The treatments were given, and Dr. House responded at first, but suddenly took a turn for the worse and died. He was buried in Hopkinsville, in the Salter family plot. Carrie did not return to the beach. Tommy left Washington and Lee and joined her in Hopkinsville. The hospital experimented with several osteopaths during the fall. It was impossible, at the moment, to get a man with both a medical degree and osteopathic training. Ordinary medical doctors were out of the question. They either laughed at the readings or condemned them as quackery. It was an osteopath or nothing. In January of 1930, Dr. Liddick was induced to abandon There Is a River his practice and take charge of the hospital. Miss Annie Casey, Edgar's only unmarried sister, took Carrie's place as housekeeper, and things were on an even keel again. At the beginning of March, Dr. Liddick's chart showed patients receiving treatment for congenital incoordination of mental and physical faculties, ulcers of the stomach, acute gastritis, general pruritus, mucus colitis, spastic paraplegia, tabes, dorsalis, optic neuritis with partial blindness, shell shock, with its typical manifestations, hysteria, acute osteomyelitis, and several types of gynecological trouble. AU were responding in what Dr. Liddick described as an encouraging manner. His report was printed in the quarterly magazine of the association, The New Tomorrow. In the same issue, dated April 1930, the first yearbook of the association was announced, and subscriptions were offered at $1 each. In the News and Views section of the 40-page periodical, it was reported that 210 check readings had been given during the first 3 months of the year, and the calendar was filled until JXME first. It was also reported that President Morton H. Blumenthal, Mrs. Blumenthal, and their son, Morton Jr., had returned from a 6-week vacation in Southern France. At the hospital, the hydrotherapy room had been enlarged, the electrotherapy room had been removed to more suitable quarters, and a recreation room had been opened in the basement. Headway was being made by the statistician on the job of setting up a system for cross-indexing the readings and extracting from them information on various subjects and specific ailments. In the spring, Dr. Brown moved to the beach, and plans for the university crystallized. It was to open in the fall, without waiting for erection of buildings. An office was opened in Norfolk to handle inquiries and to register students. Dr. Brown, from the basement of the hospital, sent There Is a River Out catalogues and announced the purpose of Klein New Institution. The founders of the university have in mind the establishment of an institution which will eventually be second to none among educational institutions in this country. We are well aware of the fact that it will require some years and a considerable financial outlay to attain to this ideal. At the same time, however, we have definitely determined upon this objective and we shall make every effort to realize it as rapidly as possible. Naturally, we do not expect the institution ever to reach a stage of completion, but we do hope to make it a center of learning, culture, and research in which all branches of human knowledge and scientific research will sooner or later be represented. In a sense, we shall endeavor to make own application of Cly State meant of Ezra Cornell, the founder of Cornell University, who expressed his aim thus: I would found an institution where any person may obtain instruction in any study. Similarly, we shall strive to coordinate within the scope of Atlantic University, so far as may be humanly possible, all the branches of knowledge and scientific endeavor which offer any contribution to what has been called the amenities of living and to the worthfulness of human life. We are well aware of the fact that there will be many difficulties in the way of accomplishing our objective. There will doubtless even be those who will openly declare that we are attempting to overshoot the mark. We only bespeak for our plan the open-mindedness which should characterize any enlightened individual, and such cooperation as each interested person feels inclined to give in a sympathetic endeavor to bring to pass the purposes which we have in mind. We do not intend to rival or supplant any existing institution of learning. We desire, on the other hand, to cooperate in every way possible with all existing institutes. There is a river tie-ins and agencies of educational and altruistic character, and we invite the same degree of cooperation from them. The association announced the university as a supplement to the hospital, a parallel service for the mind and spirit. Actually, there was to be no connection between the association and the university. Dr. Brown's theory was that scholastic respectability should first be won, after which the subject of psychic phenomena could be taken up in a proper, respectable manner. The university, in fact, was to dwarf the association and its hospital. It was to be a modern institution of higher learning with a faculty second to none, and a complete and elaborate curriculum, especially in the arts. This was not Morton's original intention. The association needed a small school where philosophy, metaphysics, psychic phenomena, psychology, and occultism could be studied in an intelligent manner, with facilities for the proper research and laboratory experiments. No such program was in Dr. Brown's outline. He wanted a university like other universities, only a little better. Apparently he sold Morton on this idea, at least temporarily. Edgar looked askance at the whole project. If a university were to grow from the work, it should do so, he thought, as a logical outgrowth of the research program, not as an institution superimposed on the structure of the association and dwarfing it. According to the plan of Dr. Brown, it was to be just another college, no different from the hundreds of colleges already existing in the country. The idea of a small group of students applying themselves to a study of the readings, and then gradually gathering around them students interested in metaphysics and philosophy, was lost in the grandiose scheme of a big-time school with a high-class faculty and a winning football team. What do you make of it? Edgar asked Hugh Lin. There is a river. It's not what I expected, Hugh Lin answered. He had been graduated from Washington and Lee in June, and was to be the university's librarian. Edgar shook his head. He was not so worried about the development of the university itself as he was concerned with its effect on the hospital. Already checks from New York were arriving late. Morton was making remarks about economy and the need for lowering the hospital's budget. Of course, there was a depression abroad. The whole cone Try was in a slough of economic despond. But Morton had stoutly maintained that he was better off than he had been before the stock market crash of the preceding October. He can't be, the squire said bluntly. Nobody else is. I look for trouble, Edgar, especially with the university costing him so much. I hope not, Edgar said fervently. I hope not. A new building was finished in the hospital grounds that summer, a home for the nurses. Across the boulevard, foundations were laid for the buildings of the university. The school was to open on September 22nd, in two of the oceanfront hotels which closed after Labor Day. The old Waverly served as the boys' dormitory. The girls were housed in the new Waverly. The buildings stood side by side at 22nd Street. Classes were to be held in office buildings all over the beach. Assemblies were scheduled for the Presbyterian Church. On the ground floor of the boys' dormitory, Hugh Lin was housed in a temporary library. As opening day approached, there were 200 students enrolled, a remarkable beginning. Meanwhile, members of the board of directors of the association received notice of a meeting to be held on September 16th, in the nurses' home. This is it, the squire said. Something is going to happen. There is a river. Edgar was glum. He set out for the meeting with Ger. Trude and Hugh Lin. Maybe he's going to ditch the university and put all his interest in the hospital, Gertrude said. I hear he's been having lots of trouble with Dr. Brown. Everybody's talking about it, Hugh Lin said. Nobody knows what happened, but they think Morton pledged $5,000 a month, and Dr. Brown's faculty is going to cost about twice that. He has some good men, Gertrude said. He didn't get them to leave the jobs they had without offering them more money. Edgar reached for a cigarette to hide his nervousness. It's what we don't know that makes it certain we're in for trouble, he said. Morton used to confide in us. He used to tell us all his plans and thoughts. He's been drifting away from us ever since this university began to take shape. He held a match to the cigarette. If only the school could have waited a few years, until we had an endowment for the hospital, he said. Morton and Edwin were waiting at the nurse's home. As always, they were quiet, smiling, immaculately dressed. When the meeting was called to order, Morton began to speak. He sketched the history of the hospital in terms of money, his money. When it was opened, it cost him $3,000 a month. Gradually, this had been cut down by income from patients. During 1 month, the income from patients had matched the overhead. Now, however, the hospital owed nearly $10,000 for items of overhead. Obviously, there had been waste and extravagance. Though it was a place of healing, it ought to be run on a more businesslike basis. Therefore, it was his suggestion that the association turn the hospital back to him and his brother, with the there is a river standing, that the bills would be paid and everything kept running as usual. Would the board vote on this suggestion? A vote was taken. The members, stunned by the proposal, automatically voted against it. It was defeated. Morton was irritated. He said something about withdrawing all funds and forcing the hospital to close. Edwin spoke about the seriousness of the situation and suggested another vote. Edgar got up to speak. He looked over the heads of Morton, Edwin, and the other members of the board, as if he were addressing someone who stood beyond them. I have every confidence in Mr. Blumenthal, he said. He built the hospital. He has maintained it. He understands the work I do better than almost anyone else. I am sure he is desirous of continuing the efforts we have so well begun. It would mean very little to me to have the hospital without his cooperation and interest. I suggest the board accede to his request. Another vote was taken. The proposal won. Meeting adjourned. All the members except Morton and Edwin went to 35th Street to ask Edgar what had happened. I don't know, he told them. Maybe Morton is right. Maybe we've been inefficient in handling the money. If he thinks so, he has a right to handle it himself. It's his. He's in trouble, the squire said. The depression is getting him. Edgar didn't answer. He had been aware from the beginning that the hospital and association were heavy struck. Tours to erect on the foundation of one man's whim. Morton had not possessed the money to endow the hospital. He had paid for it out of his winnings in the market, and as these went, so went everything he had built at the beach. The hospital, with its income from patients, might have got by. There is a river with what help he caught JD offer. The university was apparently the straw that broke the camel's back. Unless the readings themselves were responsible. Physical readings had so crowded the calendar that Morton's requests for philosophical guidance had been postponed time and again. He had grown used to this help, and seemed at a loss without it. When even the SXM day periods were taken by emergency physical readings, he was cut off from a source of mental food which had become necessary to him. He had become fascinated by the subconscious and was attempting to fathom its language by having his dreams interpreted. He was also delving deeper and deeper into the metaphysical structure of the universe. To be stopped in all this must have irritated him. One thing was certain. The readings had repeatedly told Morton that knowledge of Xarplukal Traas meant nothing in itself. The truths had to become part of his life to mean anything. Morton had ignored this. He had plunged into water that was over his head without learning to swim. S4 to KNQW _D not to do becomes sin, the readings had said. Hence in such an approach each should weigh well whether there are ulterior motives, or just wonder meant, with little thought or idea of what such information might put upon him as an individual. Morton had learned a lot, and he had done something about it in an external way, but there had apparently been little change within himself. When he couldn't get what he wanted for himself from the readings, he wasn't enthusiastic about helping others get what they needed. Maybe everything will be all right, Edgar said. Maybe things will swing upward on the market. Maybe the hospital can make enough to meet its overhead. But the depression deepened. Atlantic University opened, and for the first semester more there is a river ton met all the bills. Then he ceased his support. The hospital continued to run, the outstanding bills were paid, the staff was cut, and the budget reduced. After January, Dr. Brown endeavored to keep the university going by his own efforts. He cut all salaries in half, started a movement among Norfolk people to support the school as a local project, and solicited donations wherever possible. Some of the professors were paid by Morton because they had letters from him, which confirmed their contracts. For a time it was rumored that Morton only wanted Dr. Brown's resignation, after which he would reorganize the school along different lines, resuming his support. He's strapped, the squire kept saying. That's what's the matter. He can't be the only one in Wall Street making money. He must be losing too. On February 26, 1931, a meeting of Cly Board of Trustees of the association was held in New York in the offices of the Blumenthal brothers, at 71 Broadway. Hugh Lyam and Edgar drove up from the beach to attend it. Morton moved that all activities of the association cease. Hugh Lynn and Edgar didn't vote. The others present, Morton, Edwin, and T.B. Brown, voted yes. The motion was declared carried, though there wasn't a quorum. Patients at the hospital had already been notified that they would have to leave. On February 28 the staff was paid off and the doors closed. Morton had told Edgar he could remove any personal items from the building. The first thing he did was arrange to have the files of the readings taken from the basement. When these were safely on their way to 35th Street, he wandered through the rooms, looking from the windows of each at the sea. Finally he left, carrying with him three things: his mother's picture, Dr. House's picture, and there is a river oil painting of himself which had been presented by the father of one of the patients. As he walked along the porch to the steps he recalled the words attributed to Talleyrand, "It is worse than a crime. It is a blunder." He could not feel that way about the hose. Pytel. In 2 years it had demonstrated its worth. In the office was a list of patients asking for entrance. Those who received treatment had been helped or cured. The files bulged with affidavits and letters of thanks. A tragedy it might be, conceived in impracticity, executed in haste, abandoned in its hour of victory, but not a mistake. Gertrude was waiting for him in the car. I should never have allowed it to open without being sure. It would be kept open, he said when they were out of the driveway and on the boulevard. If I had held out for that, we'd have one. We'll get it back, Gertrude said. There are lots of people willing to put up money. We can raise a fund and buy it from Morton. I'm not so sure, Edgar said. He was silent until they were nearly home. Then he said, I've been tested, and I've failed. It rained that night. It had to rain. Edgar's tears were not enough to drain the misery in his soul. He needed help from heaven. He meeting was held in the having room of the house on 35th Street, on the afternoon of June 6, 1931. 61 people attended, overflow ing to the porch and up the stairs. Most of them were from Norfolk or Virginia Beach. None was wealthy, or even influential. Dave Kahn was present, and Dr. Brown, whose Rimversity had staggered to the end of its first year. Edgar opened the meeting and explained its purpose. Last winter, when the hospital closed and the association was dissolved, he said, I sent a letter to everyone on my mailing HST. Each of you received one. In it I asked a question, whether in your opinion another organization should be formed. If this work of mine is worthwhile, I asked you, tell me so. Tell me what, in your opinion, is its value. I don't want to fool myself, or anyone else. If it has all been a mistake, I want to quit now, before any more damage is done. I received hundreds of replies. They all said the same thing. They urged me to continue the work, to form a new There Is a River organization, to carry on the program that was begun and abandoned. A reading was taken, and the same question was asked. The reading said to leave it to those who had been helped or benefited. If they thought the work was worth continuing, they would continue it. That is why this meeting was called. That is why you are here. You have been helped or benefited by the work. You want to see it continue. You want to form a new organization. He paused, as if there were nothing more to say. Then, slowly, he went on, all my life I've wondered what it is that comes through me. It could be of the devil, it could be of God, it could be just foolishness. If it were of the devil it would produce evil. To my knowledge it never has produced evil. I know that at times it has refused to do this. If it were of God it would produce good. I know that it has done some good, people have told me so. I have seen good come of it for members of my family. You people have seen good come of it, I'm sure, or you wouldn't be here. Is it just foolishness then? Would foolishness make a man well if he were sick? Would foolishness make a child walk straight if he were lame? I have many memories of the hospital. I saw 2 men come in on stretchers. I saw them both walk out. I saw a girl come in on crutches. I saw her walk out without them. But the thing I will always remember is a summer day, when I sat on the porch of the hospital with some friends. A.M. Carrot came out to thank me for a reading I had given for his wife. He was a Mennonite. You've seen them around the beach. They are a religious group. They live DOVM in the country. There is a river. They dress in simple clothes and the men do not shave their beards. Well, this one turned to my friends and asked them if they all knew about me and my work. They said they did. Then he asked each one his religion, and each told him. There was an Episcopalian, a Methodist, a Baptist, a Presbyterian, and a Catholic. And you all believe in this man, he said. They said they did. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, that is a great thing. Some of you here today may feel the same way. I hope so. Because it is for that thing, that great thing, that we are considering forming a new association. I can go on giving readings for those who ask for them. I will do that anyhow. I always will, no matter what happens. But if it is ever to be anything else, if R is ever to mean anything to groups and masses of people, it is ever to add one bit, however small, to the goodness of the world, or its wisdom, it is up to you and the others who believe in IA. I'm ready to do my part, and I'll do it as you as I can. He sat down. Dave got up and told of his 16 years of experience with the readings. They have never let me down. So far as I know they have never let anyone down, he said. It's the people themselves who have failed.